Thank you for listening to the Cosmetics Business Podcast. For early access to episodes, exclusive beauty news stories, analysis, trend reports, and award-winning magazines, subscribe to cosmeticsbusiness.com. That's cosmeticsbusiness.com.
Hello and welcome to the Cosmetics Business Podcast, a monthly roundup of the biggest stories, trends and talking points in beauty. My name is Sarah Parsons and I'm sitting here with fellow cosmetics business journalists
Julia Wray
and Alessandro Carrara.
And in today's episode, we're going beyond the headlines to explore Huda Beauty's bold new look, SheerLuxe's somewhat controversial new employee, and the embarrassing beauty trends sweeping TikTok. And make sure to stay to the end where we reveal our favourite new beauty launches this month. In no particular order, Alessandro, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. And today I want to talk about Huda Beauty's new rebrand, which I think is really exciting. So Huda Beauty, founded by influencer Huda Beauty, announced this year that she would be rebranding her whole business with a new logo, new packaging. And yeah, I think it's really cool. But I know that online, the new style choices have been met with slightly polarizing opinions over the font choice and people preferring the old look. So really my first question right out the gate is, what are your guys' thoughts on the new logo?
The first logo was very streamlined. It was very minimalist. I think it was designed by her sister or sister-in-law, I think it was. Whereas the new one is designed in-house. It's definitely chunkier. I think we should link to the article that we originally wrote on cosmeticsbusiness.com. So listeners, you can go and see for yourselves exactly with the before and after looks. But definitely the new one is leaning heavy on the nostalgia. Some people are interpreting that as like Spice Girls, Y2K. Others are perhaps saying it's a bit more 70s vibe. It depends what you're going for.
So I feel the new look logo it's a little bit more youthful. It's maybe, as you say, a bit more nostalgic. It's maybe a little bit more accessible and fun. But I have to admit, I was asking myself when I saw it, is that really Huda Beauty? I think that the original one looked quite classy. I really liked the way that the A and the B interplayed in the first logo. And it's not that I don't like the new one. I feel like it's a bit of a vibe. For example, Glossier recently as well. It launched a summer capsule collection which had a kind of stealth logo rollout, which again, it was similar. It was 70s inspired. It was lowercase as well. Shed the capital, which the Huda Beauty one has also done.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of this, and this particular one was inspired by the lettering on Black Sabbath's
That's so cool.
1972 album, Volume 4. So yeah, big old 70s vibe. And I feel like that's maybe a similar thing with the Huda one.
Yep.
But, and it is friendly, it is summery, it is youthful. But again, I wonder if these brands are really looking at their specific DNA as opposed to maybe what's trending at the moment.
The thing is though, like people don't like change. Like Huda has,
I'm one of those
people don't
people.
like change. And Huda has super fans. She's the biggest beauty influencer there is. She's got an incredibly loyal following. She goes where no founder goes before, particularly on the eyebrow raising subjects. And she isn't afraid to go there. And she's developed this loyal following because of it. But if you look at her, whatever she would do, if she changes her DNA or visual DNA, people will have an opinion about it. Also, I think why it's such a shock is because for the past 10 years, we've seen blanding, which is the buzzword for stripped back, minimalistic logos. Pretty much every fashion house over the past 10 years, whether it was Burberry, Balenciaga, YSL, they've all stripped them right back. And so that's what Pinterest and Google and Spotify, they've all done it as well. So that's what we've got used to. And particularly in beauty, we're used to seeing that very simplistic, not very playful logo. So when you're seeing someone like Glossier do it, or perhaps Huda Beauty, it does stand out and it does make you question. And I think it's because it's jarring to the eye, not necessarily because it's bad. I have to admit, when I saw it, I wasn't really a huge fan, but the more I've thought about it, the more I quite liked it. Because if you look at her other branding, her other campaigns, her visuals, she's very playful, she's very colourful. And yes, she's a woman, can't remember exactly how old she is, but like she's in her late 30s, I think. And so she's not a Gen Z in terms of her age group, but she's got to grow with her brand, and her brand has always focused on the youth market. And perhaps this new font is looking at that.
I think that's really interesting. I know that some of the comments, obviously we put the story up online on Instagram, and some of the comments, we had a little mix of comments, but one person did write that they thought that the logo was in line with the look of the new packaging and that it was sleek with a hint of fun. So I think maybe on its own, you've got to think about the logo in the context of the products themselves. And if the products and the packaging are having a revamp, then the logo and the design of that tend to go hand in hand.
Definitely. And I think that if you sat down and made the most perfect plan for your rebrand, here's everything we're going to do to capture the market, get everyone on board, you're never going to get everyone on board. No. It's a risk to rebrand. It's absolutely a risk. What I do appreciate is that the way she's announced it with the little 10-minute docuseries, talking it all through, I think that's actually really smart. I think she's kind of talking everyone through, here's kind of what we're doing, here's behind the scenes, rather, okay, bang, we're just done. Here's a new branding without really telling anyone what's going on. I think that's really smart. I think it's sort of in keeping with like engaging with that really loyal following that she's sort of amassed over the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the transparency behind it, or seemingly transparent behind it, obviously it'll be heavily curated and edited. And to bring her, probably some of her OG fans with her on this new journey. Yeah, you're right. It's incredibly sensible. I do think she's a bit risky, perhaps, with introducing new consumers to the brand who are perhaps older, who might look at the font and be like, actually, this doesn't really appeal to me. So I think she's a bit at risk of that. But in terms of what's trending appeal to Gen Z, I think she's bang on the money.
Do you think there's an element of that nostalgia which could track well with the slightly older consumer, maybe the Gen X, not to say they're old, but the older consumer?
I don't know. I think when it comes to Gen Z, it's typical, you don't like what the generation before you has got. So they love
everything that millennials have done is hated.
Yeah, exactly. So like Glossier Millennial Pink, that's probably why they're testing this water with this new logo. It's a very 1970s vibe. They want that, bright green, the bright yellow. They want the bold colours. They want the sass. They want that attitude. And Huda Beauty does have that attitude. As a founder, she's got attitude, she's got personality, and perhaps actually her new brand replicates that more.
I mean, having gone against this initially, I do think you have a point when it comes to, injecting that bit of personality back into the logo game, because you mentioned that, was it blandification or blandifying? And everyone, from Yves Saint Laurent, Burberry, all kind of going in that direction a couple of years back. And you can see there are reasons for that. They're easy to translate across lots of different platforms. They look good online. But at this point, you've got rid of so much of what made these brands' logos unique and distinctive, and from a DNA point of view, uniquely them. And what I think is really interesting is you are seeing now, Burberry, for example, I think this year has done a U-turn. It's brought back the night, and which is great. I love that. It's so iconic, isn't it? And I think a lot of people are quite happy with that. And I know that a couple of others, I think YSL as well as one of them, is not reverting to a previous one, but having bringing out things which are more inspired by their history and their heritage, as opposed to, hey, this long serif looks really good online.
It's true. But with fashion, it makes sense though, because luxury fashion, it plays on heritage. And so it needs to appeal to both younger consumers and older consumers. But also when times of crisis, you want to build on your heritage for purpose and for trust. With beauty though, you don't really have that same connection. Firstly, because it's not the same price point at all. But there's something about fashion where you are waking up in the morning and you're putting on your clothes and be like, okay, this is who I want to be today. And this is the event I'm going to go to. And this is who I'm trying to represent. And a logo helps with that, affiliate your personality with that brand. But with beauty, it's actually the opposite, because with beauty, the product has to be seen and used everywhere. It has to be, can I happily throw this in my handbag and whack it on the tube and not feel embarrassed about the logo? Can I quickly apply it in the morning? Will this fit in every aspect of my life? And from a brand perspective, that's what you want, because at the end of the day, you want the consumer to use your product a lot, so they have to rebuy. Because if something's too ornate, people will treasure it, they won't use it, it'll look pretty on the shelf, but they're not going to use it, and so they're not going to repurchase. And so you have to be careful with your packaging in regards to that.
Absolutely true. Because the thing that everyone says is that the formula is always the best part of Huda. This is what people love. So I think what Huda's thinking is that they're kind of trying to bring the packaging in line with, I don't know, the same quality that people think about when it comes to the formulation. But you make an interesting point. I think it's really interesting because, like imagine, I don't know, bringing out something on the tube and be like, okay, I don't really want to be rocking this. What are people thinking of me? So tricky.
Exactly. Like if you look at, okay, we'll be talking about packaging rather than logos, but if you look at someone like Tatcha, for example, like they have really beautiful packaging. That's a very high end price point. And that is something you keep in your shelf and you have beautifully. But there's something about that packaging which you have as part of your ritual that you want to reuse regularly. But with something like makeup, from a female perspective, you carry it around with you quite often. So you can't have something that's bulky. You can't have something that might chip in your handbag and you want to, you can just whip it out and it can fit easily everywhere. So you can take it everywhere with you.
Massive tub of cream and you have to like hold with two hands,
Exactly. It can't be too pressed.
Like I struggle that with like fluorosis, which I think I'm saying that correctly. The Chinese
one, I think so.
Yeah. Like they have some of the most beautiful packaging. Very ornate, builds on Chinese heritage, but I'm like, you will not take that out and about with you.
Oh, you could do, but it would last 5 minutes. Get battered, yeah.
Part of me, do you guys remember when Paco Rabanne rebranded last year and
That's
they went
Rabanne.
from, now it's Rabanne.
Yeah.
Part of me, you might not agree, but part of me thinks that it would have been kind of cool if Huda just gone down to just Huda instead of Huda Beauty and just kind of like lent into that. You're kind of talking about the attitude. It's like so confident, just the name.
I think that when the brand is your name, you need that differentiation. It's hard enough for us as journalists trying to differentiate between Huda Beauty and Huda the woman when we're writing. So I do feel like there is maybe that aspect as well, like when it is your name on the piece of packaging. But she could have done it like Madonna.
Yeah, that's true. But with her fans though, like I think whilst she's Huda Katan, people call her Huda because it's like a friend. You call them by your first name, and she's got that loyalty. And Huda Beauty is to distinguish with her and the brand, and her sisters are heavily involved with the brand as well.
Is there anything else she could have done? To sort of, a rebrand is a really big opportunity for a business to. She was when did, if I'm not mistaken, she founded in 2013.
Yeah.
It's been about over 10 years. 10 years is kind of like a good time to sit down and be like, okay, here's what we're going to do with the business. Is there more she could have done? Is there a new packaging, a new category, something to, I don't know, make it even more of a splash than just a logo and new packaging?
In terms of branding, I would have loved to have seen her lean more on her Middle Eastern heritage. She is arguably the only true global power player in beauty from that region. And I think a small nod to it would have been exquisite.
I feel like there was that brand a little while ago that Huda invested in.
Ketish.
Ketish, yeah.
Which is now
the intimate care brand, which is now no longer around. But I feel like that had that nice kind of leaning into the heritage and to the the Middle Eastern market.
So speaking of new looks, perhaps it's time to revisit some old ones with what is trending on TikTok. Julia, do you want to go?
Very happy to. So unless you've been living under a rock or, you're one of those deliberately obtuse people that refuses to listen to anything after the Libertines broke up, you'll be aware, and we have some of them around, we do, you'll be aware of the existence of the American singer Sabrina Carpenter. So she is a former Disney Channel kid, and she is currently dominating the music scene with these earworms like Espresso and Please, 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 which Barry actually appears in the video for. So far, so gossipy. Why are we talking about her on this beauty podcast? Well, Sabrina is the poster girl for the beauty phenomenon that everybody is talking about right now, which is blush blindness. She is well known for this makeup look. It consists of dark lined lips, like 90s lips, thick black lashes, and most importantly, this arguably excessive use of blush.
Does she use like 3 blushes or something?
She does. And I actually have the blushes that she uses. I do. Blush blindness essentially it's what it sounds like. It's a term used to describe the inability to judge how much blush is too much blush. And I think we've all been there when you look in the mirror and you think, I could add a bit more. And then you see photos and you just think, dear God. And obviously, Sabrina, she undoubtedly looks good. She's pretty. She's 25. She could probably wear a full clown juggalo face and still look good, right? But what there will be is a lot of people out there replicating her look who will probably, undoubtedly, in a few years, look back on their photos and just go, why didn't I realise? Why didn't anyone tell me I was wearing this much blush? So at the time of this podcast, there are 83.2 million posts on TikTok about hashtag blush blindness. So guys, I just want to know, what are your thoughts about this blush renaissance? Will we be cringing about our 2024 blush in a similar fashion to the way that I maybe cringe about my naughty's tadpole brows with hindsight? And now that I've revealed my trend faux pas, what are your guys?
God. So as well as the blush blindness, we're also seeing like beauty blindness in general. Like you've got eyebrow blindness, which people are talking about a lot, eyeliner blindness. Okay, so there's that, which I find fascinating, that people are willing to publicly shame themselves.
Or their past selves.
Or
I
the
feel
past
you can do that,
selves.
can't you?
Yeah, but there's something about that doesn't really sit well with me, because I'm like, collectively as a group of individuals, trends happen for a reason. And so there are key points in history where you can tell that's what it was, just by a haircut, like 1920s, for example, or the 1950s red lip. And so, but there's a nostalgic and a warmth to it. It's the self-deprecation that I'm not a huge fan of. I think perhaps it's the age group, and perhaps as they get a bit older, they might look back and be like, oh, I was so young and naive. But I don't think they should beat themselves up for it.
I think it's kind of mean. I was looking at some of these so-called eyebrows, these horror shows apparently, and I don't know, they're bushy, they're cool. I don't know, it doesn't seem worth self-deprecating yourself over.
No, I think also perhaps because it's this age group, like I see a lot of teens and people in their 20s doing it perhaps. And I think it's because they grew up with constantly posting on the internet. And so this idea that, oh, if I say I look bad, then other people can't say I look bad. Because let's face it, if you put an image out on social media, you don't know how long that it's going to be there. It could be there forever.
It's sort of like being on defense in case you get attacked in anticipation of it.
Yeah, I think so.
I do feel there's maybe like a little part of it as well, which is, it's, as you say, you looking back on yourself and go, wasn't I silly when I was younger? But then I do feel that there is this, as mentioned earlier, when it comes to, Gen Z hating everything that millennials like. And when the trend bellwether swings one way, you look back at something 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you do cringe slightly because it's not necessarily what's trending now. And that's obviously what's in your zeitgeist and what you're thinking about and what you're aiming for. So you're inevitably going to look back at something and think, oh God, that's so old school.
Yeah.
You just are.
Julia, I can't scroll through my Facebook. I can't do it.
Can you give us an indication of what's in
Yeah, go on. What's your moment?
I had an OG Justin Bieber haircut with like the side fringe, and I just, it was, that
again,
was
I
bad.
can't imagine that, because Alessandro has got wonderful long luscious locks, and I feel like this is you have to show us at some point.
Did you straighten it?
I did straighten it.
Just the front or all of it?
All of it.
Yeah,
okay. It was a different, I think only one other person in our team has seen the photo. And maybe it'll stay that way. So I totally get that. We're looking back. But would I post it and be like, oh, what was I doing wrong? I feel like...
But was it bad, or was it's just a product of its time?
Maybe both.
Oh.
Maybe both. But it's true though, because it was popular. I mean, Justin Bieber was popular when he first came out.
Yeah.
You need to be nicer to yourself.
Yeah.
You probably looked absolutely
thanks,
right.
guys.
So the thing that I find really interesting about the whole Sabrina Carpenter over blush look is that it's almost kind of necessarily kind of against what we are all have all been talking about, which was this this pendulum swing away from sort of glossiness to a more matte look. Because one thing that I find really interesting about it, and so I mentioned that I had the exact shades down here, and I just didn't have them to hand, so I panicked. But I'll revisit that because it's actually Armani Cheek Tint. And it's 2 shades. So there's 62, which is this kind of delicate mauve, which looks quite wearable. And then 53, which is very bold, very bubblegum. And I went on their website. Unshockingly, both of those have been sold out. They're the only 2 that have been sold out of all the shades. So clearly, I'm going to put that down to the Sabrina effect. But the other thing about it, which is really interesting, is that it's a glossy, highlighted blush as well. It pings. And yeah, it's going against what all the pundits are saying, is that, we're due to go away from all these derivatives of glass skin, of donut skin, and this juiciness is sort of steadfastly clinging on in there as a trend, in this case in blush form.
With the matte look, it's more about like touches to it, but so perhaps you might have a glossy cheek and a matte lip or a matte eye to kind of almost enhance the blush that is going on. Matte is probably my makeup blindness, if I'm completely honest.
Oh God, same here. I do not want any shine whatsoever.
No, yeah, I would. It probably even today, I would think matte powder is my makeup blindness. But if you look at pictures of me when I'm a student, my other half, he just thought I had terrible makeup. But it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know. Well, it's not that bad, I don't think. But it's because flashback on your powder and foundation. So when you're like using these rubbishy disposable cameras or digital cameras, and you've got the flash in your face, and you've got a lot of powder on because you're so afraid of being greasy in a nightclub, you just go completely white like a ghost. And also it didn't help that at the time the real look was grey, a smoky eyeshadow with like white underneath your eyebrows either. So
I remember it well.
I looked like a panda.
You look quite powdery.
A panda. No, panda is what I look like. Especially blending your eyeshadow wasn't a big thing then.
Didn't Laura Mercier come out with a foundation blush that is designed to alleviate
the primer.
Anti-flash.
The primer is very good.
Genuinely long overdue and very exciting.
Send it back in time, guys.
So one thing I'm curious about in this whole trend blindness genre, and I might take us a bit rabbit hole here, and I hope you guys don't mind. Do we think, sometimes I think about this, is there a certain element of snobbery and classism which surrounds the way we discuss, I would call it like the boldest interpretations of looks, whether it's like makeup, hair, tan, nails, whatever it might be? Because when we talk about, as we have been talking about in previous podcasts, go listen to them, things like latte girl and smelling expensive and dressing expensive, you have this emphasis which is like on this kind of polished subtlety, which is almost like somebody's gone, okay, I can afford to drop 100 quid every other week on my nails, so I can basically afford to have them looking just slightly like a better version of my actual real nails. Whereas if, you know, this is your luxury treat and you're going maybe once a month and you're spending that money, you want people to be like, hell yeah, nails, you know, like they're there in your face. Same thing with eyebrows, same thing with a lot of these trends. Even things like excessive use of fillers. And I feel like there's a lot of kind of maybe industry snottiness around the way that some people interpret these looks and kind of maybe the excess to which they go with it. So, you know, but I was turning around and going things like, oh, this is going to be so trashy in like 4 years' time, all of these beauty blindness trends. You know, is this something that we as commentators, as an industry, you know, are exacerbating maybe a little bit?
So you do always see the occurrence with different socioeconomic groups of how they approach beauty. So like you say, if I have saved up lots of money so I can have lip filler, I want the world to know I've had lip filler. Yeah, I've earned hard money to pay for this. And so there's that element to it. Whereas if you look at in other aspects of society, it's the opposite. You want it I want to have lip filler, but I want nobody to know I've had lip filler.
Yes, you want everyone to go, oh, you look like well rested.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you look at, like, I think when I'm just thinking of like royals now who kind of fit the social class that you're talking about. So I'm thinking of like Princess Diana and I'm thinking of Kate Middleton. They are some of the biggest, most fashion style icons in the world. And yes, both of them have always had that natural look about them, but they would have they would have had help in terms of the stylist and everything. But I'm pretty sure they would have had some, you know, beauty blindness going on. Like if you look at Kate Middleton, a very beautiful woman, but there was definitely at one point in the 2000s where her eyeliner was too heavy.
Oh, and I believe there was blush blindness on that runway where she, to be fair, otherwise looked fabulous. I think that was when Prince William fell in love with her. Yeah. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of blush going on there.
Yeah, and there's nothing to like discredit her. I think it was just a product of its time. That's how you did your makeup. To me, like with Princess Diana, I think that bouffant, like very big hair probably hasn't dated that well, but nobody will look at her and be like, oh God, that's terrible. But it is just that element of blindness.
This is coming from someone who doesn't wear makeup, and this is sort of my take on it. But if you're going to spend lots and lots of money on these highly pigmented products and then not make the full use of them, are you really doing the product justice?
Very good point. Yeah. Especially if it's like that bubblegum pop shade, that Armani shade, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I'd love to try that. I don't know whether I could pull it off like Sabrina does, but
I'd give it a go. The problem is, though, I don't think it's so much the product themselves, it's the education around it. So, once upon a time, it would just be magazines that you would be getting your beauty education from. But now you're getting from all this education from influencers and TikTokers and people with no social media following, or no experience in makeup, but who have a camera and a foundation brush and they can put content out there. It's this miseducation of what looks good on a camera doesn't necessarily translate to real life. And it's this lack of education because there's so much information out there that consumers who so-called fall victim to beauty blindness, perhaps where they've gone wrong is because they're following a trend, but blindly without thinking, how does this eyebrow shape that is popular in the 2000s, how does that work on my face? How does the application of the Sabrina Carter work on my complexion? They're not taking these trends and adjusting to what actually suits them. And I think that is the problem, but that's where brands can come in. And this is a great opportunity for brands to be like, yeah, follow this trend or have fun with it. Use these products because that's actually the opposite of what we don't want. We don't want people to become like, oh, I don't want to try anything because I'm scared of it's going to look dated. We want people to try and have fun and experiment. But that's where brands can come in and be like, okay, yes, try this, but this will look great on your face shape. This will look great on your complexion.
And then you're building a really loyal following that you can, I don't know, they'll come to you for that advice,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a trust building exercise.
I think if I were a woman, I definitely think I would have probably been very heavy on the mascara and the whole emo side of things. I think in the alternate timeline, that would have been me.
I'm going to say, veering slightly away from Sabrina, this is one of the reasons why I really love brat culture, is the fact that it's not about this kind of perfect implementation of makeup. The idea is that your makeup might look like you've been partying in it for 5 hours because you have, and it's great, and it's kind of embracing that makeup should be applicable to real life. It should, as you mentioned, look good on your individual facial structure and complexion color, everything else. But then it should also be applicable to whatever it is you're doing, whether you're going partying, whether you're going out in 30-degree heat. You don't want this heavy makeup that looks fantastic on camera as you're putting it on, melting off. And I do watch videos on TikTok and I just think, wow, she looks great, but my God, the amount of makeup that's gone on. You take that outside, especially at the moment. It's really warm outside while we're recording in this nice, cool, air-conditioned room. But you will be sweating that off. So it's that real life aspect, isn't it?
And speaking of real life, shall we go on to our third one? Okay, so SheerLuxe is a luxury, as the name would suggest, fashion and lifestyle website. It's based in Britain and they have a platform in the Middle East as well. And they have ruffled some feathers, I think it's safe to say, with their latest hire. And she's not a beauty journalist who's a graduate who's just spent £10,000 on a master's degree and done hours and hours and hours and hours of internships. No, she is a computer-generated artificial image. Her name is Reem. She was announced to the world in July and she's divided opinion. SheerLuxe put her out on their social media platform. They described her as she's going to provide the best recommendations when it comes to fashion, beauties, interiors, travel, food, and more. From the current trends she loves to her summer skincare heroes, get to know her better here. And so Reem is a very beautiful digital image that has confused the world.
I mean, I had to stop myself from laughing into my mic because I could feel the barely concealed rage coursing off of you. Susie got the chair just next to me. As somebody who gets paid to write for a living, and I feel that rage as well, to be honest. I think probably for me, one of the things that irritated me most was, I'm assuming that what SheerLuxe was patting itself on the back about most of all was that Reem, or Reembot as she's been called online, was presented kind of as, one of the team, like, hey guys, we have a new starter, tee-hee, and her likeness was actually just inserted into an actual photo of the actual real team who are presumably writing for her and actually picking the trends that are then attributed to this unreal person. And you mentioned many, many hours and many, many pounds, but we're living in a cost of living crisis, right? Media, editorial especially, I know I'm preaching to the crowd here in this room, but generally it's famously underpaid. People are being laid off. And so it feels incredibly crass to see money being ploughed into creating a non-existent person, again, whose actual thought, styling, etc. is done by the actual team, assuming that's for no extra cost, to back this gimmick up. So, yeah, and I feel the two things are, the extra icky issues for me is the female issue and then also the women of colour issue. So firstly, there's not a dearth of talented women searching for jobs in fashion, beauty and lifestyle journalism. We come across them every single day when we go out. There is a wealth of talent out there, and you're literally making the barrier for mostly women in this industry even harder and making her knowingly ethnically ambiguous. So if you don't know, you've seen her, if you haven't, she could be Middle Eastern, she could be South American, mixed Indian. She's very neutral, isn't she? But whatever the point is, those barriers are going to be even harder for non-white women working in Western media, and you're making a sodding fake woman. I'm sorry.
She is meant to be from the Middle East. Reem is an Arabic name, and that's what people picked up upon. And apparently it's because they used a Middle Eastern agency to develop her, and that's why she's done the likeness. But she is ethnically ambiguous, and they have done that deliberately. It's a bit like a wellness brand. They like to do that as well. So they can sell her all around the world. It's basically it.
What were they expecting? What were they really thinking? I just don't get it. I really, really don't.
I don't see the point.
I think they just wanted to be first. I just think they wanted to tell people, hey, look, we're doing this and no one else is doing it. Isn't this exciting? Because brands often want to do that. But I mean, it just is tone deaf on so many levels. And to add another layer to the tone deafness, I saw somebody online commenting, flagging that, you're creating somebody. This is an unreal person. You could create anyone. And they chose to create another thin woman working in fashion journalism. I mean, oh dear God, it's not exactly groundbreaking, is it?
No.
Did you see some of the captions? It was like, one of them was the picture of the lunchbox, the little lunch, and it was like, oh, obsessed with this such and such brand. It's my go-to lunch as a Reem. Like, no, you don't eat, you don't exist. What are you doing?
Yeah.
It's so true. I feel the same way a little bit about... do you remember Little Michaela?
Yeah.
One of the robot influencers. So we had like Shudu and Ema and a whole bunch of these probably about like 7 or 8 years ago. And
she's still going.
She's still going. And I checked, her latest post was on 11th of July. And it basically is her talking about self-care and overwhelm, much like Reem talking about her pics and her duvet days. And a human poster is put underneath that particular one saying, seeing an AI cry to Hope Corps is like anti-Hope Corps. And I love that. And that comment actually got lots of likes. So I'm feeling like maybe people are cynical and aware of what's going on and rightfully unimpressed.
Yeah. And with someone like Little Michaela, or when you see virtual influencers being used by brands, I get it. And because it's really popular in China and South Korea, and it's a marketing tool that has come over here. I understand from a brand's perspective, because you can completely control them. They never age. They are malleable. And so you lord over them, as creepy as that sounds. For what is supposed to be a journalism website or a magazine lifestyle website that offers, albeit they have lots of affiliate links, lots of advice, I do not understand that, because there's meant to be an element of transparency, honesty when it comes to what you're advising your readers. And so how can a robot or a digital image recommend products? Like if you read the article and it's weird. So like one of the questions is, what is your fragrance ride or die? And she wrote, supposedly, a current favorite is Margiela Replica Jazz Club. It's both sexy and feminine, but my forever fragrance will be Gris Dior. She can't smell. She has no skin to put perfume on. How does that work?
So what gets me is that whether it's directly and you've got somebody there, an intern, I don't know, hopefully paid intern, because that is mandatory now, thank goodness. But you've got them sitting down, tapping something out, or whether it is using AI to mine Google and is coming up with clippets and snippets of what other people have written beforehand. It is essentially passing off the work of people, hardworking journalists, and presenting it as somebody who's, and it's so strange because they're very proud, it's very proudly not a person, but then it's also pretending to be a person, or not it's pretending to be a person, but whoever's behind it is making it pretend to be a person. And it's just, it's a circle of odd.
Yeah, it really is.
But why are we trying to cut corners here? I don't understand. Because AI is a slippery slope that just leads to blander designs and laziness.
I mean, don't get me wrong. In some ways, I'm not a total Luddite. In our industry, we're using AI for things like transcribing, which is fantastic. It takes away some of the grunt work. You know that AI is being used by formulators, for example, to take away some of the, if it takes away the things that take you hours and hours and hours and don't necessarily contribute to the creativity of a process, then I totally get it. And again, I've had so many friends tell me that Abel Voyage, for example, is amazing. And I know for brands, things like customer service chatbots, can be really helpful. AI there can be a good brand gateway, can reduce waiting times. So there are ways in which AI is really, really helpful to the beauty industry, to industry at large. But from a creativity point of view, because it's never coming up with something new. Yeah. It's only mining what is already out there in the sphere. So it's never going to, somebody sitting there can go eureka, they can have their eureka moment. AI cannot have that yet. I don't know where the future is going to go, but at present, it can never do that.
Yeah. And that's similar. So I spoke to quite a few beauty and fashion editors on the consumer sector about this. And most will not speak publicly about it because they are worried about losing connections and they're worried about losing work. And I think that it shows you how competitive and how difficult that side of journalism is. But I did learn, and what they did tell me about it, is that they're angry because there's job cuts left, right and centre, which we've spoken about. And they're angry because they've trained for many years and they've done hours of unpaid internships. They're already competing with influencers for education and information. And they're worried that now they've got to compete with AI as well. And their jobs are already being eaten away at because they have to do lots of work for like shoppable revenue and affiliate links. And that takes time away from their, journalism, their research and their writing. And so what they did say was that they were happy that AI could be used to help with those more mundane tasks, like you said, Julia. But it seems scary that it's actually being another way just to replace them entirely.
Here's the thing, though, that both brands and also consumer journalism, and we all need to remember that the people they are reaching, the people brands are reaching, the people magazines are reaching online magazines, they are real people. Your consumers are real people who are just like your stuff. And when you are seen to be undermining consistently real people, you are going to be showing your core customer base that you actually fundamentally don't care about, again, people in similar jobs and similar roles doing what they do day in, day out, going in, grafting, etc. So don't very obviously undermine people like your clients in front of them in your keenness to be the first to use AI. It doesn't make sense.
But is it good that they're being honest about it though? Because
better honest than not.
Yeah, because it is happening in journalism. Like it's already quite commonplace in financial news that for AI to be used to with earnings call summaries and to create that. Bloomberg do it, for example. A contact of mine at a financial paper who was responsible for AI journalism, he was surprised that we still do it manually. So he was surprised that we still do
Maybe we like the misery.
Yeah, he was surprised that we still do it manually.
Can I ask, specifically though for them, is there any kind of legalities around, do you have to mention that it's AI?
So I don't know about the legality around it.
Or the ethics.
Yeah, but they are very honest about it on their website. They don't hide about it. And that's where other ones who do have hid it. So, for example, Men's Health have written articles that have been created from AI, and they got torn to pieces by the experts who found mistakes in them.
Oof.
Yeah, and so they published them as something very vague, something like Men's Health Editors or something like that, rather than a specific byline. And then it was Sports Illustrated. They've got accused of using AI and creating fake human-like bios for the authors on their website.
Oh dear God!
I know, because the supposed author, their headshot was up for sale on an AI-generated image website.
So what were they trying to like sidestep all the Google updates and?
Yeah, exactly.
Cheeky.
And then you've got Publisher Reach. They're a British publisher, and they look after lots and lots of regional publications like OK Magazine and The Mirror. They're both national titles, and they're a bit more open about it. And they've created an AI tool that enables journalists to quickly rewrite stories and put it across all of Reach's publishers, off their websites. So they're using it as well. So there's different ways. I think honesty is the main thing.
Honesty is the main thing.
And you said, it's this rush to be the first. I don't think they're going to be the last. I
they
do
won't
think
be.
there's going to be another such and such bot coming out, and
But
it'll just get.
I think maybe the next one, they will learn the lessons from this one, and maybe it is less on your nose, feels less crass, feels less opportunistic.
This is Cosmetics Business Picks, the section of the podcast where we share our favourite products of the past month. Julia, why don't you take us away?
My pick for this month's podcast is Dr. Paw Your Gorgeous Skin Hydrating Face Mist. Now, not being a meteorologist, I have no inkling what the weather will be like by the time this pod goes live. But trust me when I say it is scorching in London at the moment. And this little guy has been an absolute lifesaver. So I use it fresh from the fridge. It's lovely and cooling. And it also contains niacinamide to hydrate and soothe, and a very pleasant neroli flower scent, as well as Dr. Pawpaw's proprietary ingredient, papyronic. So it's doing much, much more than a water spritz, for example, would, no matter how welcome that is. So this will indeed be staying with me throughout the heat wave and hopefully beyond.
Mine is the Skin Support Oil for Stretch Marks by Daily Luna. So I'm pregnant, and at the time of recording, probably 5 months pregnant. So I haven't gone as big as what I'm going to. But I want to help prevent any stretch marks. Not that there is anything wrong with stretch marks. They're beautiful when you've earned them, anyone who's pregnant or the mom who's listening. But I would really recommend this product for anyone who does want to help prevent it. Whilst it's too late to know whether it will completely work, I'm enjoying it so far. Compared to most oils, it's not sticky, it dries really quickly, so you can pop it on the morning and put your clothes on straight away and not have to worry about getting any marks. Oh, it's unscented, which has been great because my skin has become more sensitive, even more than normal during this pregnancy. It has lovely ingredients like cocoa oil, vitamin C and calendula, and so it's just very pleasurable to use. Alessandro?
Guys, I'm on like a watermelon kick at the moment. I love anything and everything with watermelon in it.
Harry Styles vibes.
Really?
Very summery.
Cool.
Yeah, totally summery.
High.
Do you guys remember? Do you guys remember Whistle lollipops?
I do. Oh my God, I love those. Nostalgia hit.
And there was the watermelon flavour. It must have been then. I loved those growing up as a kid. But for my pick this month, I'm going with the Laneige water. They released a watermelon flavoured edition of their lip sleeping mask. And actually, I've been taking better care of my lips recently. So it's been really nice to use. And it's chock full of pomegranate, grape and raspberry juices, which helps to hydrate and nourish the lips. It's also got coconut oil in it. It's really summery. I love theming things. So right now, really lovely, sunny out there. It's really nice to have sort of watermelon tasting things at the moment for me.
That's all now for the Cosmetics Business Podcast. Thank you, listeners, for joining us. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe or share with your beauty friends. Also, feel free to leave a comment to let us know how we're doing and if there is anything we should cover next time. Now join us next time as we tackle the biggest stories and trends in beauty. And in the meantime, make sure to subscribe to cosmeticsbusiness.com for all of your beauty industry news and analysis. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.